Welcome to Colney Talk Podcast.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Welcome back to another episode of Colney Talk Podcast, a bite-sized show. I'm your host, Alex. First-time guest, happy to have you here. And to my returning listeners, thanks for joining me. On this bite-sized show, we'll talk a bit about the Arsenal game and then pick out my top 3 Arsenal players who I think were great in the game and one player I consider the odd one who just had a poor game or not good enough, who just needs to be called out. Final Champions League group match with Arsenal visiting PSV. Arsenal already secured a top spot. My excitement, I'm sure with others, was to see youngsters start or feature in the game, seeing how they've traveled with the team, and that expectation kind of was there to see. Well, having a few other fringe players like Colney, Cedric, Ramsdale in goal all starting is what we expected. And also Smith Rowe back in the team, that was really great to see. PSV, on the other hand, they wouldn't care as well because they've also secured a spot and they did some, lineups of their own. But surely the intent for both teams is to win. So it was up for a real competition here. I wanted to see a good game in terms of expectations and good contributions from the youngsters somewhat if we had good results. And that's a little bit of the excitement there, a lot more of the excitement rather. But the reality is things can be really harsh in somewhat of that expectations of how things can turn out. This is no exhibition match, and there are certain things at stake as well. So it's more for a win. And you can see the rust from these French players as the game started, not grabbing control of the game, finding it hard to, can't contain how they were being pressed, PSV that is, causing a lot of stress in the backline defense. There was so much of defending at the start of the game. And there was a huge save and a lucky miss from PSV. I mean, that was a big-time block from Saliba and, in that last-minute rush. And PSV missing that open sitter. I mean, that was a big luck for us there. And Cedric was working hard against that pacey winger. We know his limitations, and the winger, these are youngsters who might have a little bit more speed than he did. So that was some work for him. The game really was about Arsenal trying to gain control, gain their foothold into the game as it grew, but it just took a little bit of time. Most of that time, it was game played in Arsenal's own half. A bit of worry as the game went on that Ramsdale had a little bit of injury check because of his ankle based on that blitz of the early block. But, I'm glad he was able to continue on, not needing to get Raya coming to replace him. And Arsenal were having a tough time moving the ball through, especially from the way we've built from the back. Our defense held onto the ball. They locked up the middle, and we just couldn't flow through easily. Nketiah and Reece connections showed some real good flashes. I mean, some of the things, a lot was dictated from what we needed in that middle, but in turn for that, the attacking rhythm for Arsenal had not been steady, had not showed up yet. It just took so much time, little breaks here and there. Everything just felt not as smooth, and I think that's expected. And our first serious shot from goal was from Colney, really shaved off the post. It would have curved straight into the net, but it was just kind of like curving right out. So, and Clay would have been a huge banger if it went in. Arsenal they had a better control of the game in the middle, especially, Colney and Jorginho finding some rhythm in the way they had to maintain the push from PSV. But still with that, it was Arsenal looking for brilliant combinations in the build phase for the attack, which hadn't happened yet. And it just had some flashes here and there, as I said, still looking for some of those combinations, but nothing so much. Eddie got served a few times, but those are really tight moments. And then he got his first cross in the box from Kivior, which was kind of a good sign of the intent that he wanted to get as far as, giving the goalkeeper a test. And then right after, Reece and Cedric built a beautiful run, which was perfectly set for Eddie to finish. I mean, it was brilliantly set up very well and a lovely goal. It wasn't an easy shot for Eddie by any means. So credit to him and Cedric and Reese for really building that up and getting things going. In defense, Kivior had been the victim of keeping up with the defendant PSV's Bakayoko, or perhaps he wasn't even getting much cover, but it could be both. And it just was interesting because while I know Cedric had a lot on his hands and all he had to do for some reason, a lot of their entry, PSV that is, came from the left side where Kivior was going to be covering, and I thought we wouldn't have so much of a problem there, seeing how he has played left back for a while in that position. Ramsdale tested a couple of times with some shots as we kept defending and trying to, keep any ball out of the posts, and he really did okay, keeping that clean sheet at the time, which it was in the first half, and the test did really come out, and he did display his brilliance like we know. So that was really good for him, and seeing how this was his own Champions League debut, I'm sure he had a lot to prove or show. Second half, PSV got back into the game, grew stronger into the rhythm of things, and Saliba's mistimed clearance gave an opening for PSV to capitalize and, equalize it for 1-1. They had threatened a lot in the first half, and getting into the second half, it was bound to happen anyway. So we just had to rebound and get on with the game. And then Elneny goes down. Such a terrible, unfortunate sight to see there. And then Rice comes in. I mean, can you imagine that that's the only replacement we had at the moment for midfield, that is? And that's definitely not a good look. But interestingly enough, Rice wasn't coming in for Elneny. He came in to cover and replace Saliba. So Rice in center back. Who knew? And that's at least new for me, but it was a good, interesting combination there. PSV were denied a second goal with a little bit of deflection and the post. So we still were at a stalemate 1-1 draw. Arsenal didn't look like they had any attacking confidence as the game went on. In fact, in moments to build up, they just lacked a lot of, boldness when they got the ball, when they had some passes, just a lot of broken play. So much of that for Arsenal. It felt so much of disconnection, and that continued on. Kivior struggled. He just couldn't cover as much, making so much of that defensive backline open. Yes, PSV had the speed with them on their sails, and they did a lot to really capitalize on those fast breaks. And it was Arsenal struggling defensively to keep up and track back. And that defending kept on until we had to make some subs to get some control back into the game as it went on more so into the 80. And then at some point with a set piece, Arsenal had a goal which was ruled offside, rightfully so. And then it felt like a game of struggle on both sides in a way, but more tilted to Arsenal struggling and defending. And that disjointed attacking look stayed on. We made some changes that we thought will be a little bit more to change that stalemate. Before that, while Arsenal was still disjointed in the attacking, we did so much more again of the defending, and then another blunder of a chance that could have had us, trailing 2-1, but we got lucky, and the shot was way off, which really didn't have so much of a threat for Ramsdale, but we were wide open there. And as the game was going closer to the final minutes, we just had one bright moment, very last moment, where Leo had this good control of movement, and he could have squared it off to Eddie to score, but he took the shot. I mean, many would have wondered why he didn't give it to Eddie, but I guess that momentum was good enough for him to shoot, which he did, but then, hey, it was blocked. And then the rebound came out, and Kivior whiffed a rebound high shot, and that was the game. 1-1 draw, no appearance for the Academy kids, and that was it. For the group stage matches in Champions League Group B, it was done, business done, and I mean, I wouldn't really have a bitter look of the game, nothing to really complain about. While we didn't have anything to play for, I wanted to see some good play from the bench players, and from what I saw, it was just a few bright sparks and a few other disappointments somewhat. And my top three players were: first player, Reece Nelson, best attacking player in the game, picking up the ball deep, driving attack forward, major catalyst to create that goal for Eddie. I mean, yes, he contributed, he combined with Cedric, so credit to both of them, but it really was Reece Nelson driving that forward. I was pleased with his performance, and I think many would agree that he separated himself from the rest of the other bench players. Second player, Eddie, he got involved deep in receiving the ball and helping track back and doing some defending, and played comfortably with Reece. Similar to connections that we see Martinelli enjoy when he's on the flank with Jesus, Eddie benefited a lot with Reece Nelson, and they had so much of those combinations in attack, at least to drive forward. And a few of those breaks could have turned into something really beautiful, but it wasn't fully there in clicking. Credit to his game, though, Eddie, giving us that Arsenal goal for the game and, helping us secure this draw. Third and final player, Big Gabby. As I mentioned, with all the defending that Arsenal had to do, Big Gabby was right center in every aspect of it. He was burnt out in this game. I mean, covering a lot more ground than he would have liked. Despite his early mistakes that almost cost us, he was the Mr. Consistent in defending, and he was challenging all the battles. He would challenge a lot as well. I think he played an incredible game and defended well enough to keep a lot of those exposures from converting to, big chances for them. And now my odd player, as you may have guessed, was Kivior. While he wasn't as comfortable playing as left back, he was exposed a lot and could not even keep up with PSV's winger. I mean, he got cut out a lot more and probably restricted more of the momentum that we wanted to build in some of our forward phases, now playing cautiously. So, while keeping the ball in our own half, he created a whole lot more pressure while we had the ball and not making something out of it. Maybe Trossard didn't pose a threat for him to make runs or lay off those passes, but Kivior just could have done more. It could have been one of those possibilities, but he struggled a lot. Either way, for a player that had rotated much more than Cedric, I would have expected him to perform much better than he did. So he's my odd one today. All right, folks. Big job completed securing the top of the group. A draw is so much better than a loss. Nothing especially bad to complain at all. Great work to the team. They've achieved what they set out for the Champions League stage. Now we head into the knockout rounds from February, I think. Happy to see Smith Rowe get some playing minutes, so now we can count on him. Not sure how long we've lost Vieira as well. So that will do it for this episode. Thanks for listening. Please share and subscribe. Until then, talk soon. Take care. Bye-bye.